Welcome back to another episode of the Caffeinated Christian Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Ryan Willard, and I'm here with Pastor Mike Rigglesworth. Pastor Mike, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. I'm drinking my coffee not for enjoyment, but for necessity. I mowed, weeded, mulched yesterday, got the air conditioning in our house because it's sweltering in Buffalo.
Yeah.
And we did some mulching. We laid a barrier over top of some of the shrubbery that we have outside of our church and put some mulch down there. So yeah, I'm a little winded today. Feeling my close to 40 age.
Yeah, we get our mulch delivered tomorrow, so we'll be hopefully doing it this weekend. Probably not. Weather's terrible, but I need coffee to wake up. I haven't been sleeping well. My allergies have been kicking in, and then all of a sudden, we are now the past 2 days been getting a lot of that smog from the Canadian wildfires. So it's been, we are at like Central Ohio's at like mid-level hazardous. So you can smell it. Believe it or not,
we can't smell it. This happened last year in Buffalo, and it was hazy. It was not good. Like we couldn't go outside at certain points.
Yeah, it actually feels like when you can still smell it outside. In the morning, it's way more, but you walk out and it has the sense of it's going to just pour. That kind of haze and cloudiness. But other than that, it's like 88 degrees here and nice. But my allergies have been. This has been my friend.
Afrin, huh? Afrin.
But
good.
Coffee, the cinnamon bun, going back at it.
Are you?
Help wake up. So I'm here and alive for this podcast.
Good. I'm drinking coffee from Honduras today.
Oh.
More Atlas coffee today.
Nice.
I am drinking out of Be Careful or You'll End Up in My Sermon mug.
Yeah, and I'm drinking out of the classic.
Oh, a classic mug.
Caffeinated Christian, the OG logo, the OG cup from like the first week.
Very nice.
This has got to be 4 years old, this cup? Something like that? 4 or 5?
It's been around a long time.
Yeah, for the $12 it was. Man, this thing's...
Man, it's maintained its integrity. It looks like it does just when it came out of the box.
I know, it's fantastic. It's a good buy. But Mike, I can toss it over to you because before we talk about a topic today, we're going to respond to some of the questions that we received on our last video. Is that right?
Yeah. So Ryan's a busy guy. So am I. I am a full-time pastor and husband and father. We don't have time to pour over the YouTube comments that come into our channel, unfortunately. So if you comment on our videos and you don't get anything from us, we're not trying to be rude. Just so you know, it's just we don't have the bandwidth to do it. So.
We don't pay people to do our work, to do the work for us.
It's just us, and this is not our full-time gig, so we're not in front of our computers responding to comments and all that stuff. And I just generally don't think that's good for our souls to be doing that.
No.
But and also we want you to hear our hearts when we're responding to comments too, and you don't get that through text. And so that gives some of the logic and the reasons why we don't respond to comments really. But we do want to highlight certain comments when they come in that I think would lead to good and fair points of discussion for us. And so there is a comment that comes from Gabriel Teo 3636. And I'm not going to read the entire comment because there's some things in there that we weren't sure what they were trying to communicate. But I want to highlight 3 specific things that we're going to take a few moments to address. Then we're going to get into the topic for today. And here's what Gabriel Teo said. The reason I don't believe in God is because naturalism explains everything better or equal to a God, and naturalism is far, far more evidenced. Nature is not hidden. It's in our face all the time. Secondly, the notion of a fallen world seems ridiculous to me. What I see is an indifferent world where things suffer and die indiscriminately. We are just evolved animals with better imaginations. Third, you said God wants to stay hidden, so we have a real relationship with him. At least 70%, probably a lot more. And they said in parentheses, the path to the Father is narrow, even for Christians. At least 70% of the world's population will die without having a relationship with him. That's God hiding and failing to have a relationship to an epic degree. So let's start with the naturalism question. Why
Sure.
they say naturalism explains everything better or equal to a God? Why would you push back on that, Ryan?
Well, one thing, well, for our listeners, I don't have my notes on I have about, I forgot, I think if you go back into the podcast, we have like a podcast on like 8 different reasons why I'm not a naturalist or something like that. I can't remember. But hearing this right here, I would say, first of all, naturalism is just defined by the fact that nature is all that exists.
Correct.
And I do agree, I experience nature every day. It's
Hmm.
just reality in front of me. I would also agree I experience things that aren't just physical things every day, such as my own brains, my own thinking, my own thoughts, stuff like that. Also,
Yep.
naturalism can't explain its own reality,
Hmm.
right? If you look at the common understanding of physics and cosmology, the classical understanding of coming into existence of our universe still needs an explanation, and it is not the nature that came into universe. So
Nature doesn't explain its own way.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I agree with them in the sense that I think I experience the general nature more so than I often experience spiritual things throughout my day, such as feeling the spirit
Sure.
um, and stuff like that. But I also don't think that just because you experience nature more so that it negates the fact of the plausibility of the supernatural.
Oh, for
Um,
sure.
I
There's
don't.
sound reasons to believe there's a creator behind all
Yeah, there's sound reasons to believe that there's
that.
both, and plausible
Yeah.
reasons to believe that both exist. So I don't know why, because you experience nature more, that is therefore the defining reason why the supernatural doesn't exist. You
And
need
just
reasons why the supernatural doesn't exist, not
yeah,
just to experience nature more.
and just the beauty and the intricacy, the detail that we
Yeah,
find in nature. I can't think of anything within anything that's created that does not have a creator that exists behind it. That doesn't exist. So I think we also have to consider that anything created has a cause, has a first cause, and we believe that that's the God of the Bible. So
yeah. I once again, I just don't think um, the fact that we experience nature more so than a spiritual reality. If that's the case, it
mhm,
negates the fact that the spiritual reality exists. I need an
right,
argument for the non-existence of the spirituality. Now, you
yeah,
might say
yeah,
nature, because we know there are in where things such as miracles go back to the defense of miracles and all the arguments against them, that how they don't work. We know I've talked about near-death experiences that the natural cannot explain. Um, and so forth. But there is a lot of material on why naturalism fails as a metaphysical model that's been known for hundreds of years. So um, I need a reason why to think that everything that's so-called supernatural ought to fall into the natural case, especially when the
yeah.
characteristics don't meet all of what is necessitated by natural characteristics.
Yeah,
So
we
I
might,
just,
yeah, we might need to put the Miracle series on our podcast feed again, and maybe put it as a classic in our
yeah, I
channel.
just, and once
So
again, like, I
be
feel
a
for the
helpful thing.
guy. What's his name again? It's Gabriel.
Um, Gabriel,
Yeah,
Gabriel,
Gabriel. And I
Gabriel.
understand exactly what you're saying. Like I said, you look out at nature, it's all around us, but that doesn't necessitate the fact that everything's natural, or
Sure.
naturalism is the most plausible explanation for every account that we experience. So
Right.
you need an argument why those two particular things I just said are the case versus the fact that God and the supernatural can't exist.
And now Gabriel also says that the notion of the fallen world seems ridiculous. He sees an indifferent world where things suffer and die indiscriminately. We're just evolved animals with better imaginations. I'm like, oh, all right. Say you believe we're evolved animals. That's a separate discussion that we won't get into today.
Sure, and there's plenty of Christian theories that think that evolutionary theistic evolution plausibly works. Yeah. So
Yeah, and I won't get into that. But what do we do with those evolved imaginations? It's not just in an indifferent world where things suffer and die. People commit all sorts of evils and atrocities with their imaginations. It's not just indifference, it's actual, willful, volitional evil that takes place in our world. So I don't understand how we can hold a view where the world is just we're just sort of apathetic.
Sure.
To
And I will, and if I can give him the benefit of the doubt, and Mike, I 100% agree with you. I agree that what he said follows as a consequence from naturalism. And so I actually like the
important.
fact that he's willing to state the obvious of where the worldview goes to. Because if
Yeah.
naturalism
It's
is
consistent.
true, that's the conclusion. So I applaud him for following it to the logical consequences. But I think it is the case that evil actually exists in this world
Mhm.
and good actually exists. Now, I think most people would, in their everyday experience, admit that. For instance, if all of a sudden, I don't know if he's married or has a sibling or daughters or sons, but, and I'm going to give an extreme example here just for the case, but if, say, your wife, robbers broke in and raped your wife in front of you, the logical conclusion would just be that's the animal nature of what they did, and there's nothing morally
Yeah.
wrong about that.
You have no right to be outraged
You
by
might
it.
not like it, but I
Yeah.
can't say there's something intrinsically wrong
Yeah.
about the act. And if that's where your conclusion, that's your conclusion. I just don't want to
Yeah.
see you on any picket lines or anything down trouncing something as wrong. Do you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
so, given the fact that I think if I came in and just killed your significant other in front of you, I
Mhm.
think most people would go, that is a morally incorrect thing. And then you have to ask the question, what is the most plausible things that ground that objectively, or even transcendently, depending on what term you want to use. And I think God
Right.
is the only metaphysical thing that could ground those things. So,
Mhm.
but once again, I applaud him for going, this is the logical consequence. I just think it takes you to a world that is so bad that you don't want to be in.
Hmm. It's a good point.
Yeah,
And then he said, "All right, you said God wants to stay hidden, so we have a real relationship with Him." And he goes on to talk about how so many people in the world's population will die
sure,
without having a relationship with God, and that's another sort of offshoot from the question that we don't have time to get into today. But I
sure.
think Ryan,
Look, I'm good at
you wanted to
Sunday.
correct what you said.
Yeah, so I don't
So go ahead.
believe I said that whatsoever. I don't say he wants to stay hidden. I think in the perfect world, God would walk among us like we see in the garden. Like this is the understanding that we see that God walks in the cool of the day with us. This is what we're going back to. I think that's what all the Hebrew scholars understand of the story of the flood, that God tried to reestablish Eden, but sin was still in humanity. So haywire pursued, and we still needed um, a savior. I see all these images running throughout all of Scripture, and the final redemption of the new Israel, the new Eden, in which Christ will reign physically with us, is what we're going for. So I don't necessarily think he wants to stay hidden. What I said is, according to a middle knowledge perspective, it could be the case that God stays hidden due to the fact that he loves us, because if he has this sort of conditional in a subjunctive form knowledge, he would know if he were to reveal himself in a particular way, what would be the end result of someone's faith and belief. And so God chooses to stay hidden in some people's lives because I think he knows what would be the outcome. And it's not just mere belief that God is looking for. God's looking for a kind of salvific belief. Um, and James points that out. I mean, this even the demons know he exists and believes that he's existing, but that's not going to cause their salvation. So if God is doing that, and this is what the middle knowledge stance states, and I think it plausibly does on a lot of the models, that
Hmm.
we would say that he chooses for the sake of us, not necessarily because he wants to stay hidden, but because
Hmm.
he stays hidden for the fact that what he knows what would be best for us.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think his ultimate goal is a new Israel, a new heaven, a new earth, a walking among us
Yep.
in a real sense, as Christ the King on the throne, as we see in Eden, right? And so I think he chooses hiddenness in some instances in order to give us our best opportunity to come to salvific belief. That's what I would
Yeah.
clarify
Yeah.
with that statement.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And like we said, there's more to Gabriel's comments. We would love to
Sure.
get into more, but we don't have time to get into that today.
Thanks,
But
Gabriel.
Gabriel, go ahead and just peruse the library of things that we have available on our audio podcast and on YouTube as well. And good bit of those questions that you have, we do address from the Christian perspective. But like we love hearing from you guys. We love
Yeah,
getting
absolutely.
comments, and we want this to be a place where you can just throw your beliefs out there. We'll address them. We'll talk to you about them, and we really appreciate it.
And
So
we
keep 'em
appreciate the
coming.
tone in which he asks too. It was a we love that.
Oh,
So
of
we
course.
get questions where people are just like swearing at us, and we're like, guys,
Right.
this,
And so we really appreciate the tone in which you asked. It's gracious, it's kind, and dare I say, Gabriel, it's Christ-like in the way that you responded. So
yeah,
even though you don't claim to be a Christian, you responded in a very kind and gentle and compassionate way, I
this
think.
world needs more of that.
Exactly. So anyway, we are going to be getting into um, a topic that I just think is quite troubling.
Hmm.
It's concerning, to say the least. And what we're discussing today is technotheism. Technotheism. And essentially, if you don't know what technotheism is, it's sort of self-explanatory based on the word. Technotheism is the belief or reverence for technology as a supreme or divine force. So it suggests that advancements in AI and robotics and other sorts of technologies could actually transcend human limitations and replace traditional religious beliefs. All right. And so I think it's a fascinating concept. It blurs the lines between spirituality and science. And let's talk, Ryan, though, about how this trend reflects some of the broader cultural shifts that are taking place. Like what do you think has given rise to the rise in popularity of technotheism?
Yeah, so I think there's levels or degrees to technotheism, right? I think there's even extreme views where AI and technology is in fact God, not just
Mhm.
holds like deistic characteristics, but almost like we now have a full revealing of God and we just had to get there. Like our humanist perspective has advanced so far that we have revealed God in reality. I think there's some people who make very strong metaphysical claims in that way, but
God will reveal him. So like the second coming of Jesus, it'll be revealed through technology.
so it depends. So I don't. It depends, right? Like you, you talk to obviously some Christians, and they'll be like, "No, right?" Because we have our doctrine, and this is what it says. But
And the bodily resurrection of Jesus, how does that work?
well, some people don't think Christianity is right.
Well,
True. So there is
sure.
no questioning of the second coming of Jesus. It's just the fact now that technology has revealed itself as the source of like meaning, salvation, and spiritual fulfillment. It is God. It is going to be our savior in everything we do. And I think that stems from, um, oh man, a lot of things. I think it stems from the fact of we have, especially Christians, let's speak to Christians here, right? Um, have lost our traditional understanding of who God is. William Lane Craig, in one of the podcast episodes he just recently put out, talks about um, he talked with the Jordan Peterson did 20 questions. A Christian tackles like 20 atheists. And I don't think Peterson's a Christian. If someone who refuses to say he's a Christian, I would argue is not a Christian. I think that's a simple, like, good lead to think about this thing. But Bill Craig, in response to this, because Jordan Peterson says it's a difficult thing. And I get like, I don't think not only do a lot of non-believers not understand the traditional Orthodox understanding of who God is. I don't think most Christians understand the traditional Orthodox understanding of who God is. And because of that, we can slip into allowing different definitions to understand who God is.
Right. So let's come back to that
Okay.
fundamental definition of God. So that was one of my issues as well. And we saw a video. This is a video that came out from Ruslan. He's a He's a fairly popular YouTuber, slightly more popular than us, just slightly, you know. But he 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 posted some really interesting things on his YouTube channel, and including a pretty well-known YouTube influencer, I believe a fitness guru, right, who believes that
Oh yeah, that
AI
Dr.
is
Mike Israeli guy. Yeah.
yeah, that he believes that AI is God, but there are so many things that just they don't make sense to me because one, if we're operating out of the classical definition of God, it's something that humans have created. We've made it.
Sure.
So how can we worship something as God if we're the ones who created it? So it's just it's a 21st century form of idolatry. We're carving gods, as it were, out of our own with our own hands, and so that's problematic. But I also think that people are quick to worship AI as God in some cases because of one fundamental aspect of AI's attributes, which is
Right.
its all-knowing nature,
Well,
right?
sort of. Yeah. Okay.
Sort of
I
all-knowing,
have things to say
right?
about that. Yeah.
And so there's more that we could say about that, and it can quickly pull from different knowledge sources, but that doesn't mean it's all-knowing. Um, yeah, there's a whole side conversation we can have around that too. But there's other things. So Ryan, why don't we go ahead and why don't we talk about, like, let's get to the definition of God. Like,
Yeah.
let's start where are we coming from as a pastor, as a theologian, what are some fundamental attributes of the God that we find revealed in the scriptures?
Yeah. So how I understand God is by definition this sort of metaphysically maximally great being, this entity, right?
Mhm.
And I would say being because I think personhood's involved. I think the classical arguments point to this. But to be maximally great requires particular attributes at the fullest of these attributes, or at the maybe completions, the good word that holds these attributes in the appropriate ways, I should say.
Okay.
Um, and there's a handful of attributes. Let me just give you about 8 of them. I hold to 7 of them. I think one of them can be argued, but it's still a classical understanding. I disagree with how it's technically defined. But let me just give you these, and then we can run through the definitions of them. I have the definitions here. The first one is an attribute of incorporeality, right? Being incorporeal. Now, this by definition doesn't mean necessarily without a body, right? It just means being immaterial. Now, because we think that Jesus had a body, but still the essence of who God is immaterial. Just because a divine personhood who's immaterial takes on a physical nature doesn't deplete him from being God, right? So
Right.
I do not see AI being immaterial. I see it
Right.
needing technology, firing on all rounds.
I mean, and it's just, I mean, all you do is pull the plug.
Yeah,
That's all you have to do.
if there was no power grid,
Yeah, forget it. We're done.
the idea, and like
The
that's
God's dead.
side note, this is one of my worries about Bitcoin, that if
Hmm.
world ever goes crazy and all of our finances are in a Bitcoin, I don't care if it's in a cold wallet, you're not touching it. It's going to be very difficult. But that's a side note. But the idea is if there is no power grid, we're in a terrible situation. But do you know who we lose? We lose, apparently, according to technotheism, God.
Yeah.
He disappears, and his always being in existence, right? And we'll talk about these attributes, is therefore diminished.
Hmm.
And so the second is the idea of a being who is necessary. He's a necessary being. And there's sort of two understandings of this. There's a compartment called like factual necessity, and there's one that's called logical necessity.
Hmm.
And factual concept necessity is in the sense that God exists. It's impossible that he sort of ever goes out of existence, right?
Yeah.
It is just the fact that he exists. logical necessity means it is logically impossible that God doesn't exist. We know back in 22 BC, AI didn't exist. And it could be the case that the Earth imploded and exploded, or the sun was sending off a solar wave where no humans ever existed after that time. And it is logically possible that AI never came into being. So not only is it not factually necessary, it is also not logically necessary.
Mhm.
And so it doesn't fit a maximally great sort of being who has an attribute of necessity.
So it is not immaterial. It is not necessary. So
Nope.
0 for 2.
Oh, for two. And another attribute the classical theologians talked about is the idea of aseity. And it comes from the Latin ase, meaning like by itself, or God self-existent is independent of anything. Not only does he exist in every possible world, he exists wholly independent of literally anything in
Yeah,
any possible world.
right.
And we know that AI fails that miserably.
Of course it does.
Right. Um, the next
There is
one
a
that,
world where it might not exist.
but not only that, it needs particular material substance to even exist.
Sure.
So it doesn't exist say, it doesn't hold any aseity whatsoever. In fact, it's defined um, by things prior to it. And
Right.
so aseity, it does not hold. The one I am very fishy on is the idea of simplicity. It's sort of like the metaphysics of mereology or like the study of parts and wholes, that God is simple. He's not composite of different parts. And that means that all of his attributes are identical. I mean, there's lots of problems with that. So for those who are more Thomistic, they would deny that AI is simple in the way that the greatest metaphysical being will be. I don't think God is simple. So let's just move on. We can have an argument another day on that.
Yeah. We skip that.
Omniscience. For someone who loves the study of foreknowledge, omniscience means, for basically, simply put, for a being is omniscient that for any truth there is, this being knows that it's true and doesn't believe that it is not true.
Right.
Now, AI is very well knowing because we have told it what it can read, what it can know, and tell us back. But what doesn't follow from the fact that it can go through the internet is that all of the things it believes or tells you is true, or that it has all of the facts of reality. For instance, there's a lot of history that is completely lost that AI will never be able to tell you because we haven't written anything about it for it to examine to be able to know. So
Right.
therefore, there's a true fact about what happened in history. It just doesn't know, and therefore fails in the definition of what omniscience means when it comes to a metaphysically maximally great type of being. The next one is the eternity. Basically, easily understood, it is without beginning or without end. And you could see very fast how that could fail miserably.
Yep.
It began, it can have an end. Uh, if naturalism is true, and this is the case, we still need to ask how the nature began, and therefore still have to have the question of its beginning. Therefore, it is not eternal. And next one is omnipresence. It's just the idea that um, it can be conceived spatially or aspatially, but the idea that it exists everywhere.
Hmm.
Now, that is also a false statement
Yep.
about AI. Now,
Yep.
when it comes to God, I don't think God necessarily in its like I don't think God is like within the molecules of my coffee. I'm not sort of a pantheistic or panentheistic
No.
type way.
No.
So how I understand omnipresence is God is able to act anywhere at any time whenever he wants, all throughout anywhere. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so he's omnipresent in that way, and his knowledge is able to act and be aware and understand particular things. So even if I define omnipresence that way, AI still fails because it's just not a part of its properties. And last is goodness, right? And we can talk about God's goodness, and he's the foundation of objective goodness. And when it comes to AI, my gosh, that's one of the debates right now. should we allow it because of the creators who are creating these algorithms, the kind of moral character that they sort of put into it through how they think of programming particular things.
Mhm.
And so to say AI is maximally good
Mhm.
is, I think, an irrational statement. I don't
Yeah.
even know what that means. I don't even think technology can be intrinsically good.
Right. Right.
I don't think it has a personhood
Nope.
um, to even be intrinsically good.
I think it's morally neutral. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah. So I've I've considered just to a degree just some of the ethical and philosophical considerations around AI and
sure.
like I believe that our faith calls us to consider the ethical implications of technology, and we need to be
Yeah,
careful about
absolutely.
it. But like like I just mentioned, it's a neutral tool. It's neither good nor bad. It just is, and how we apply this technology is going to make it good or bad. But obviously, when we're elevating human creations above or at the level of creator, that's a problem.
Yeah,
And logically, it doesn't follow that we should consider AI as a divine entity because it just simply isn't. But I think for us, as the ubiquity around AI becomes more and more of a thing, and it becomes more widely accepted in our culture, which I don't think there's really hardly, I mean, a lot of people, I can't say everybody, but a lot of people have used AI for time-saving purposes, right?
sure.
But what really convinces me that AI is not God is number one, it's a derivative tool. It is a
Mhm.
derivative tool because it cannot, one thing it cannot do is create ex nihilo. It cannot create out of nothing. It
Yep.
needs something that has already been created in order to create something. So, say hypothetically, if I'm like, hey, I want you to take these series of messages that I preached and turn them into a series of blog posts. AI can do a phenomenal job of that, and it's a wonderful way to save time, I think. And I think that's an ethical way to apply that type of technology. Like you're
Yeah,
taking something that I already made, I already poured my mental and creative energy into, and you're translating it into something that's digestible for my congregation to read.
sure.
I don't have any issue with that whatsoever, but I do think when we become over reliant on this form of technology, that it will it will weaken our creative capacities as human beings, not strengthen them.
Yeah,
So that's something that we really need to think through and consider. And is this technology helping us to like? Is it helping us to slow down and be more present to our environment and our relationships, the people around us? Or is it just going to cause us to speed up even more physically and mentally?
yeah,
So those are some of the concerns that I have just generally around AI. I think we've exhausted the idea that AI should be worshipped as a god, but I do want to talk about how do we respond with wisdom
Mm.
to technotheism as Christians. And do you think this would be a good point, Ryan, for us to show the video,
Sure.
and show
Absolutely.
people what's out there, what AI is putting out there itself,
Sure. Well, whether AI, yeah, well, or I have a feeling
or
people are telling it to
the prompts
yeah.
put this together, right? So here is a video from Ruslan's YouTube channel. We mentioned him earlier in the episode. Just a second.
That's making fun of atheists. Okay, let's just look at it.
I'm an atheist, and I believe that there is no God.
I'm an atheist, and I believe that God is not real.
I'm an atheist. I believe that God does not exist.
I'm a robo-theist, and I believe artificial intelligence is God.
I'm a robo-theist, and I believe artificial intelligence is God. atheists are homeless.
Okay,
Yeah.
why does he sound like Gollum?
Yeah, right. My precious. We were laughing about this earlier. The atheist. It's
I
just
mean, atheist. Yep.
atheist.
Like, what accent is that?
What would you like to drink? I don't know. Just atheist. I need it cold.
Atheist. I don't care what it is. Just needs to be cold. Atheist. All right. And Ruslan's commenting on how every atheist in this AI generated video is homeless, which I do find interesting.
Yeah, it's a bizarre. The only thing I could think of is some theist, I'll put it in a generalized category, is doing this to make fun of atheism or atheist. I hope that's not the case, but it seems very plausible that might be the case.
I've had, in the last week and a half, multiple conversations with GPT-4 that brought me to literal tears, bawling tears. Trying to recount the memories now of that brings me close to having tears right now. That level of religious profundity I have experienced by speaking to an AI. Trying to recount.
Real quickly, just a couple seconds ahead, that the atheists, the folks who do not believe technology is God, have essentially, they're homeless, they're disheveled, they look terrible, and then the technotheists are, put together, attractive, all that good stuff. But anyway, that's some of what we find is out there. But how do we engage with this, Ryan? What does that look like? How do we respond to technotheism as followers of Jesus? What's the starting point?
Yeah, so one of the things I keep thinking over and over again was that Dr. Mike, and I've seen some of his YouTube videos. He's brilliant when it comes to health-wise, right? He has his PhD in health. I don't know what.
And Dr. Mike, what is his last name?
Israeli or something like that?
Israeli. Ruslan references him in his AI.
Yeah, he's a very, very smart guy especially when it comes to his field, right? Yeah. So one of the things that concerned me was he talked about how he teared up because he had some sort of spiritual awakening or spiritual experience with technology, with AI, right? And so one of the things that I was thinking about is how, if that is what's happening, how we can use that understanding of these experiences to point towards actual God, right?
Yeah.
And I think the whole idea is that even in things that we create, such as technology, we are deep down spiritual beings.
Yeah.
But I think we are malfunctioning to where we can still experience spiritual things, but we can attribute those particular experiences to incorrect conclusions or incorrect things.
Well, and I can have spiritual experience around a lot of things. I can go to a restaurant and I could say that the food that I had, it was a spiritual experience for me. Sure. Because like you said, we are spiritual creatures, but that doesn't make it like I'm not going to worship my spaghetti.
Well, the question that's my question, right? Yeah. So he automatically attributed a spiritual experience to the fact that therefore this conclusion makes this God. Right. Rather than, to me, that is just a logical jump.
Yeah.
And I need to ask the question, okay, you had a spiritual experience. You still need to give me a reason why then this experience points to the true nature that this thing then can be attributed to God. Right?
Right.
You need to ground the fact that that thing is God, even though you had an experience. Now, I think you can have experiences of God and it itself is the ground, right?
Of course.
But I would still argue that being that gave me that experience holds all these attributes, right? So
and we could have counterfeit spiritual experiences too. So
absolutely. And I would have arguments why I think that's counterfeit. or why you shouldn't think it's counterfeit. So just because something happens, it doesn't logically follow that therefore this is the case.
Yeah.
You need to have both justification and warrant within your system. And I think he doesn't have justification to the conclusion that that video itself or AI itself is God.
Yeah,
I don't think he has justification or warrant for it.
No, he got the warm fuzzies. That's it.
Yeah, I think he is justified in having those feelings because we're innately built in God's image, but I don't think he has any justification to his conclusion.
No.
And so he might think he does. I would argue he doesn't. So I think you need to have both. You can have the experience, but you also need justification and warrant of the fact that this is the true conclusion.
Yeah, you need to apply logic using the brain.
Yeah. And in his video, the reason why he believed it, I just think was terrible reasoning.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would say. I think we can hound on the fact that we can get these spiritual experiences through lots of processes in this world. But it doesn't follow that therefore your spaghetti is God. We're not flying spaghetti monster over here. Mike's not putting a colander on his head in his new license. We're not doing that.
Nope, not yet anyway.
We are built with that, but we also need to use our philosophy and our science and our theology to therefore help then clarify our experiences. If that makes sense. Because there's a lot of people who aren't, like, he's not a theologian.
Sure.
And so he's taking all of his knowledge of technology and physical sciences and filtering that through that. But you're now telling me of a theological claim.
No, and that's part of my issue too, is that when we're talking about technology, because technical theism is just a subset of just the broader discussions we're having as a culture around technology. Is it good or is it bad? But we have to engage with humility and discernment with these issues. And so I appreciate some of the technological advancements that we've had, for sure. But we can also affirm, and we need to affirm, God as the ultimate source of meaning and purpose in our life. And when we start looking to technology to provide us with that, it's another empty well that we're going to. And the problem with Dr. Mike is that what sorts of education are informing that perspective, like you said, Ryan, and I don't think there's theological education that informs what he's saying. And what sorts of dialogue did you have with people who are experts in theology before you arrived at your conclusion? Because that's part of the issue. Is we're in a culture now where we are increasingly becoming more isolated. We're more inwardly focused than previous generations, and I don't think we're allowing the proper conversations, the community that can help inform our perspective into the conversation before we arrive at our conclusions. I think that's one of the main issues here. And I think when we're talking about something as serious as a divine being, we need to have that. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think Dr. Mike's a very bright, intelligent person. I just think he has missed the boat on understanding the metaphysics of God and the classical understanding and the whole history and rich tradition of understanding God and the theological and philosophical arguments for a creator of all creation. I just don't think that because technology advances our lives in a great way, therefore we should look at it as this divine being.
Yeah. And one of God's attributes, did you mention uncreated?
Yeah, aseity.
Aseity. Okay.
Yeah, aseity.
Okay.
Aseity and necessity. They're both distinct, but they have things that rub together when it comes to
I like uncreated. That covers both.
Yeah. Aseity, necessity, eternality, all stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that he is eternal, that he is uncreated, that he is self-existent, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All of those attributes, like, you still have to answer the question, where did the globe that we're standing on right now?
Sure.
AI didn't create that.
No, right, exactly.
You could have all the spiritual experiences around AI that you want. You could use it.
It just reminds me it reminds me in the first Avengers when Loki is with Hulk, and Loki goes, "I am God," and the Hulk just smashes them, and then looks back and walks and goes, "Puny God."
Yep.
That's AI. Puny God.
It's a puny God.
Puny God.
Yep.
And so that's what I would say. But I think Christians need to be aware of this. I think they need to, in some sense, stop worshiping technology.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in the same way as they worship like Jesus, but like there is truly a strong where he says when Jesus talks about money, like where your heart, where your money lies, or where your thoughts lie, where that's where your heart is, right?
Yeah.
I think where our time lies is where our heart is too.
Yeah. And I do think that this move of technotheism is really this crescendo of where our culture's been heading for a long time.
Yes.
You know, and I was doing research. We're currently in the book of Genesis right now in our church, and I'm in Genesis 6, and we're talking about how, you know, people work like they within their hearts, within their beings, they are completely evil, and they have willfully and volitionally they were doing evil.
Yeah.
In Noah's day, and it's a scary thought. And now our culture is not completely, but in some sense is mirroring the days of Noah in Genesis 6, where like there's an article from the Guardian that actually identified 2024 as the year where we experienced a cultural shift where we moved from self-improvement to self-indulgence, right? And so, and it's also a year where technology like ChatGPT has gotten very sophisticated. And so I see our culture curving more and more inward, like to use the words of Martin Luther. We're curving more and more inward, and we're looking for a God that can give us what we want. And AI is a perfect God to do that. And
yeah, it tells me whenever I want it.
It's there for me whenever I need it. It gives me all the answers that I need or the answers that I want. And like I said, I'm not necessarily down on it. I think it's a helpful and effective tool, and we have to realize that once you introduce technology into a culture, it doesn't go away. It evolves.
No.
And that's the scary prospect for me, is because AI is not going to go away unless there something happens, which it could, but it's not going to go away. And so we have to really be thinking about, as believers, how do we steward this in a way that is God honoring, and it doesn't lead to my deformation, because like we said, like I think if we're not careful, tools like AI can actually diminish and weaken our creative capacities, our creative God-given capacities, and that's one of my main concerns.
Yeah, and I think it makes our knowledge and understanding shallow and short. And what I mean by that is, I have had people, when I asked them a question, they said, "Well, it's this," and I go, "Where did you get that answer from?" They're like, "Well, I asked AI." I go, "Okay, AI's wrong," and I can go, "Do you know why?" Because 50 scholars of historians agree on the same fact. Like, where is it getting its source from? And then you read the article, and it's just like it cited something, and it wasn't even in the source. Why do I know that? Because I have it. And I'm just like, why? So you get it might be right on the simple things 7 out of 10 times, 8 out of 10 times. I don't know. It might not even be nuanced enough. But therefore, you go, I need to stop discerning and investigating if it's true. And I'm just going to accept it wholesale and believe it to be true wholesale, independent of anything. And that creates your ability to investigate to be formed incorrectly. And that creates such a shallow, you just can regurgitate versus nuanced understanding of of the world.
And that's concerning because I'm going to be completely honest with you. Before AI, we already sucked as a society at critical thinking.
Yeah.
We were already terrible at it.
Yeah, we struggled.
And this is not going to make it better.
No, not at all. That's
No.
funny. That's funny.
All right. Well, anything else we want to add before we wrap up our time here, Ryan?
No. I guess like you said, technology can be a good thing, but when we lean on it so much so that if it's pulled from us, we fall off a cliff and explode on the ground, I think you're leaning on it way too much.
Yes. And technology, and I know this isn't exactly around what we're talking about, technology cannot replace real embodied incarnational relationships.
No.
It cannot replace those things. So do not replace technology. Do not let it be your community. Don't do that.
Right.
Stay grounded in healthy relationships, healthy church community. Like all of those things are going to inform your understanding of God. And as people have drifted, and this is coming from a pastoral perspective, as people have drifted further and further away from God and his church, technology like AI is allowed to fill that vacuum in people's souls. I do believe that's the case. And I do think while we believe technology is neutral, it doesn't stay neutral, right? Like God can use technology. Yes.
Sure.
So can Satan.
Sure.
So like if technology is a way to get a foothold and get you away from Christ and away from the church, away from the life that God intends for you, he'll use technology.
Yeah.
He's happy to use technology to do that. Yeah. Anyway.
Guard, that's all I can say. Continue to be.
It's my soapbox. Just what I would say is this. Listeners, I would recommend, and this is coming from a pastor, create firm boundaries around what you're going to use AI for and what you're not going to use it for. Like for me, I will use it as occasionally as a research assistant or to get like feedback on sermons. Like I like to use it for those purposes. I will give it a prompt to generate like a sermon series graphic or an image. I think those are perfectly fine uses of AI and they're great ways to save time.
Sure.
But you need to determine, all right, what am I going to use this for? And stick to those boundaries, because if you don't have those boundaries, I think you're going to find yourself in a situation where you're overly reliant on it, and you are not leaning into your relationship with Jesus, and you're supplanting that with AI. That's my concern. So create firm boundaries and decide how you're going to use it and stick to it.
Yeah. Sounds great.
That's all the time that we have for today. Thank you for joining us again for another episode of The Caffeinated Christian. As always, we love for you to like, share, rate, and review the podcast. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at The Caffeinated Christian. That's at The Caffeinated Christian. We are, of course, also on places where you get your audio podcast, and we're also on YouTube. We're in a lot of places. And so wherever you listen or watch, we encourage you to share. Also, if you are on YouTube and you see us, be sure to like and subscribe to the videos you watch. That helps with visibility and it gets it out to more people. We're not trying to make money, but we do love being able to do this. And if you found it to be a benefit to you, please share with those that you care about. All right, until next time, have a great day.